To make a plaster hump mold, you first need to find your light fixture, the one that you're going to use. From there, grab a ruler, grab the piece of paper that has all the measurements. You want to measure the width, write that down. The depth, which if it's symmetrical should be the same. So these are 14.5 by 14.5, and then the height, or the depth, take that back. Just how you look at it, write that down. What you're going to do with those is you're going to multiply all three of those together, and that will give you how much water you need. So currently this one needs 4 quarts of water. So I measured 4 quarts of water. I used cold water or cool water. Pour that into the orange bucket, set that aside. Then we will need to measure out our plaster. Currently for this plaster we need 11.4 pounds. So you want to grab a scale, grab the plastic Halloween, grab your plaster, set your plaster on the chair so it's easier to access, so you're not always bending over. Make sure that the scale is leveled out to 0 and that it is in pounds. Remember, 16 ounces equals 1 pound. So again, I'm trying to get 11 pounds, 4 ounces. If you pause for a long amount of time, the scale will shut off and you'll have to start back from 0. So please keep that in mind. Always wear a mask too. This should be a different mask than your everyday mask. Make sure that the Halloween bucket is on the scale so it doesn't fall off or tip over. Once you have got the desired amount, close the plaster bag, folding it over, and then covering that up with a trash bag to keep moisture out, and then set that aside so it is not in your way. Now you could leave the plaster in this Halloween bucket, but I'm going to choose to dump it into the 5-gallon bucket. Always dump the plaster away from you, not towards you. With this Halloween bucket, you can fold it so it fits perfectly into the bucket so you have no overflow. Kind of clean up your area. We are going to now get our 4 quarts of water and then our 11.4 pounds of plaster and put it on the floor. Set our timer. So we want to set our timer for 3 minutes. So as you can see, mine's set for 3 minutes. Hit start and then carefully pour our plaster to water. So always plaster to water. First I start out by scooping it in with my hands, nice and slow, evenly. It's not a race to see how fast you can dump it in. You have 3 minutes. Here I take about a minute to get the whole plaster dumped in. From there I will wait 2 minutes to let the water dissolve the plaster. You might see a little mound of plaster kind of like coming out of the water. That is perfect. It will dissolve hopefully in that 3 minutes. While you're waiting for that, you can set up your light fixture. So again, I've moved it to on a bucket so it has more support. I have taped that little circle in the middle so no plaster can go through it, leveling it out. Okay. What I also like to do is while I'm waiting is if I have too much plaster, because again the measurements of plaster we did length times width times height. That will make a perfect square. And we are not doing a perfect square, we are doing a dome shape. So we're going to have a lot of excess plaster. So what I like to do is set up some little light fixtures. Also, you should always have plastic or paper on the ground. It's easier cleanup. I'm going to use paper here. Painter's plastic works really well for easy cleanup. Again, if you do that, go back and make sure that it is level. Level is very important. Okay. Again, do not agitate the plaster. Do not start mixing it until that 3 minutes is up. Once you start mixing it, you can't stop mixing it, as otherwise that is starting the chemical reaction to plaster and water. I do have a side bucket. The green bucket is usually used to clean, so there's always water in there. You'll use that to clean all the tools and stuff. Remember, no plaster can go down the sink. So once that time is up, you want to set your clock again for another 3 minutes. Once you hit that, you may start agitating the plaster. Some people believe that it's best if you go slow because of air bubbles and pockets and stuff like that. And I understand that if we were doing slip casting or making molds. Today we're just doing a solid form for a hump mold. So I am probably going at medium speed. Always have your phone somewhere close so you can see it. Mine is currently over on the glaze table, which I will have a hard time seeing it. So at some point I need to move my phone over to the buckets to the left of me so that I can see how much time I have left. What I'm currently doing now. So again, you want to mix that for a good 3 minutes. Clean that off in the water. Again, this is not a race, it's not a rush, you know. You have a little bit of time before it starts setting up. Move things away so you're not tripping over anything. Carefully pick it up by the handle and slowly start pouring your large mold. While you're pouring, if you see that it is not perfectly level, you can pour to the height desired and then adjust it and continue to pour, which I am going to do. So it's off a little bit, so I'm going to recenter it and then carefully pouring it again, go in slow amounts. The paper is if it goes over the edges, it will not go on the floor, it will go on the floor but on the paper. Okay, once that looks good, we are done with that. Okay, since I have all this extra plaster, I am going to pour it into these light fixtures. So these are already set up on glass bowls. If you just set them on the table, once I start pouring, they would tip over. You can use clay to keep them down, but again, I'm just using these glass bowls so I can adjust if needed. Once doing this, I always write down that 4 quarts of water and 11.4 pounds of plaster can create 1 medium-sized light fixture and 2 small ones. So I always write things down in case I'm ever making it again, I might know exactly how much plaster to water I need and what it will be able to make. Again, once you're completely done, if you have a little bit left over, that gets poured into the trash can. And then with a sponge and with the bucket that has plaster already in it, you will clean out that bucket that I'm holding right there. And again, no plaster goes down the sink. So as you can see, I'm like what I just got done saying, I'm cleaning out. There is a sponge that is only used for plaster. You'll be able to notice that it has white little chunks in it. So again, carefully clean off every little tool so that it doesn't dry on there. Get as much of it as you can off. With this, just make sure your fingers or your hands are not towards the trigger that will make that spin. You want to make sure that it is off. Otherwise, just take that little piece out of the drill and clean it that way. Once that is taken out, we can hang that back on the wall where it says plaster. Put the drill away so it doesn't get wet. Again, dump that out. We want to clean this bucket as well as we can. That bucket can then be placed behind the door where we keep most of our plaster buckets and materials. So this is our plaster hump mold. It's been set up for a little bit. I'm going to take a large yardstick and I'm going to level it. So I'm just basically lining that on the rim of the glass and getting off all the water, all the extra, so it sets flat if we were using this. Again, this is a purpose of why we keep paper or newsprint on the floor. It's easier to clean up. We will let that set for a good hour, hour and a half, and then we will carefully flip that over onto foam and we have our hump mold.